Welcome to the Cindy Urrutia podcast. This week we have a very special guest who I'm excited to introduce. His name is Anil, and I might butcher his name, so I'm going to try to read it and say it correctly. Anil Narain Mati. Is that close?
The last one is Matai.
Thank you. I'm very excited that Anil joined us today because he's a rich person in terms of his background and experiences. I'd like to share with you how I met Anil. I met him on LinkedIn. Something that stood out for me is that he's a corporate, holistic, and spiritual coach. He's an AI author. I thought to myself, wow, spiritual and AI author. That's interesting. It seems like a juxtaposition, but I'm pretty sure you'll tell us it's not. I'm interested to know more about that. In addition, you're a poet and you share Vedic and yogic wisdom with people, as well as neuroscience and NLP. What you're doing is bridging the material world with the practical world for us to have nuggets of wisdom in terms of how to lead ourselves in leadership in the corporate world as well as our everyday life. I thought that was a different perspective than what I normally see on LinkedIn. As I've gotten to know you a little bit through commenting on your content and reading it, it's filled with a lot of practical wisdom grounded in ancient wisdom. That is why I am very excited that Anil is here because we're going to learn a little bit about him and the way he's bridging all of these concepts. Welcome, Anil.
Cindy, first of all, very good evening to you and to everybody out there. And thank you for having me. That was quite an introduction. I was wondering, was it really me? Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast. I am glad to be here, just trying to spread the word of God. I mean, to be honest, that is how it is. It's not that we don't know, but as it is said, we all need a little reminder. I have always have been very clear about it. In our Indian culture, we say we're all gyanis. We all have knowledge, but we just don't.
Know how to apply it. I can definitely relate to that because there's sometimes a bit of a trench between what we know and how to follow through and live with what we know. How do I apply this knowledge? How do I share that? How do I put it out there? That's a delicate balance and a beautiful thing. I find it interesting, this concept of how do we bring more godliness into our everyday life without necessarily promoting religion?
This is a very good question. I'm going to go back to my first experience when I started in the corporate world. I had just graduated with my bachelor's degree and I got a job in Taiwan, in Taipei. So from India, I had to move there. So first that transition happened. And then for the first 6, 8 months, while I was on the job as the sales executive for this company, all I was doing was lying every day. I'm going to be honest, because most of the salespeople, we lie a lot. To acquire a customer or while we're negotiating with the vendors, we are lying through our teeth. I was fortunate enough because I was already on a spiritual path. I had this opportunity of meeting this very enlightened soul called Mrs. Moss. She is basically the path that I follow. She used to initiate people in Far East. And it was the time when in a group of 50 people all sitting, the first question I went to her, I mean, this young kid in this group stands up and asked her, Mrs. Moss, I'm in the sales field and I have been lying through my teeth every day to the vendors to acquire business. To my clients, I'm lying to them. I'm giving them all the crap that I shouldn't be. Is that something that's creating a karma or is it going to affect in any way? And she had a very beautiful answer. She said, my son, everything you do is creating a karma. Even the thought process, you're creating a karma.
Mm.
And it is not your boss or your company who pay for that karma. You are the one who will have to pay for karma. And I tell you that in that room of 50 people, because I know everybody who was there, all the C-suite leaders and everybody was there. And in that moment, there was an absolute silence that spread across the room because all of us realized we are all lying. And come that day forward, honestly, after that, I said, I may lose my job. I don't care. But I told my bosses, I am not going to lie for y'all any further. I am going to put across everything straightforward to the client. Come to the vendor. I'm not going to lie to him. I'm not going to cut corners in terms of pricing and everything. I am going to follow my soul and my heart. If it doesn't align, I don't mind losing my job.
Wow, that's
And
powerful because you were 21, and at 21, that's really owning yourself and having a strong sense of responsibility, which I will argue not many 21-year-olds do. I think back to when I was 21, I was more interested in going dancing to the club than thinking about personal responsibility. And that's been part of my evolution. I can be honest about it, just like you're being honest about having lied. I'm being honest. I like to be in the club dancing. That was me almost 30 years ago. We all have our own paths, but I think to find that path so young, there's a certain beauty and power in it where you say, I'm going to have responsibility and a strong sense of ethics. I would like to ask you if you could expand a little bit about what karma means to you. Now, I do know that most people in the West are familiar with the concept of karma, but sometimes in the West, we bastardize things compared to how they are originally meant to be thought of in the East. To clarify for some of the people who may not fully grasp this concept, can you tell us a little bit more about how your path understands karma?
okay, let's clear this doubt very clearly. People in the West think karma is basically a punishment. But karma is not a punishment. Karma is a reaction to your thought process or your actions. I'll give it to you in a very simple term. If today I'm going to come trying to beat you, your reaction would be to defend or you would fight it out with. But in spiritual path, karma, it's basically maintaining the balance between the good and the evil. If I'm going to think bad about you or do anything bad to you, I will have to pay a price over a period of time because karma takes its own time to come
Mm.
back and serve you what you need to be served. But it is not like we've lived in a world where we need instant gratification. Karma is not like that. The best part I try and tell people, karma takes its own time. I have seen with my own eyes in our own families. It's taken sometimes 20, 25 years for that cycle to churn.
To
And
balance, right? To find its balance where things are harmonized and balanced.
absolutely. Karma is like an accountant because even on a spiritual path, the previous master used to call it, it's basically like an accountant keeping balances.
Mm.
It has a debit, it has a credit, both the sides. Even when you file your balance sheets, it needs to be balanced. So karma is also like one of those accountants, which is holding on to, both sides of your ledgers, your
Yeah.
debit as well as your credit balance. And when it comes time to balance it, it just balances it out. So it is a natural flow of things which has its own beauty of balancing. Whether it comes to your thought process or your actions, all these create a karma.
It could be a good karma too, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's not all about a bad karma. I don't know why people always think that karma, when you do wrong, it's a karma. No, even when you do good, that is also a good karma that you're creating. Like you and me, we were discussing before we started the podcast about caring for these voiceless souls. That is also creating a karma. We're doing a good karma. But now coming back to another aspect of karma, in our Indian scriptures, we have quite a lot of ancient texts. If you look at something called Bhagavad Gita, in which Lord Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, do your karma, but don't expect the rewards. Don't expect to reap the rewards for it. Because when you have expectations, we humans, whenever we have an expectation, we're bound to fail. We're bound to get hurt. Because that expectation is going to hurt us when we don't get what we are expecting. It creates hurt.
Because we've also created an attachment to an outcome.
So never attach yourselves to the outcomes. You just keep doing your part without expectations, without anything. It's just keep it clear, you know. And for me, because I have been hearing this since I was 15. So for me, it has become like a daily part of life. I don't need to try. It's like I just try to be present and keep myself free of all those things.
I like that you said that you like to keep yourself present because I think that's one of the hardest things for us to do, especially because of technology. I find myself looking at my phone multiple times a day. I find myself constantly connected to the web, to email. I also have noticed a shift between, let's say, our generation and a slightly younger generation in how we communicate because being present has been replaced with being connected online, where we think we're connected, but we're actually disconnected. I go out for walks in the mornings. I walk my dogs and I don't like to take my phone. Sometimes people are like, we can't get in contact with you. I need to disconnect. Even if I'm present for like 5 minutes of the day, I need that. Sometimes I'm not always 100% present, but I do notice that when we are present, there's a groundedness to us that benefits us not just in our personal life, but also in our careers, in the workplace, because we're grounding in who we are and how we show up for ourselves and people. And that can be the easiest thing in the world if we built the muscle, or the hardest thing in the world if we've never even lifted one muscle, 1 pound of being present.
You know, Cindy, that's a very good thing which you mentioned that when you go for your walks, you're making sure that you're doing digital detox at the same time. I'll tell you, I did that between Tuesday and Wednesday. I traveled to Mumbai to be with a spiritual master. Normally, we do this twice a year, but January, my mother's health didn't permit us to take that trip. But this time, we made sure that we do it. And you won't believe it, those 2 or 3 days, I was not even looking at my phone, or I didn't carry my laptop, not connected to the internet. I love this time of the year. During the course of the week, at times of the day, I feel I don't need to be at the laptop or connected to the world. I just take the day to myself. I spend it with my furry companions since I have three, and we do a lot of different things. There was one thing that I wanted to come and tell you. A few months back, I was having this conversation with a very good soul, and he said a very nice thing to me. Anil, we are all busy uploading social media, our statuses, this and that. It's like we're just putting it out.
I'm going to piggyback off of that and bring us full circle to LinkedIn and us meeting there in this professional sphere. Lately, there's a lot of people talking about building your brand because you leave your job, your brand goes with you. It makes you more hireable, it makes you more everything. So I decided, okay, I'm going to work on my brand, do the LinkedIn thing. I've had a LinkedIn account since when LinkedIn first opened, but I never was active on it. I started this journey 5 months ago of sharing who I am, what I do, some of my expertise with the world. I come from higher education, but I also have a lot of experience in leadership. It's one of the topics that I talk about. This is where you and I intersect. A lot of people put up content. It seems like there's this online ideal of what the content is on leadership. And then there's real leadership, meaning what actually happens in the office. And I remember 2, 3 months ago, I saw this person who was a billionaire posting outside of his home by the ocean here in California with his fancy mansion and his fancy car. And he said, I don't know what y'all are talking about. This is where I live. This is what I've accomplished. And it has nothing to do with all of the advice that's being put out there. People talk about leadership in superlative terms, like powerful leaders do this, powerful leaders do that. Yes, but we also make tough decisions.
Exactly. You know, coming back to your point, Cindy, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. As we said, people have been talking about building your brand. I'll tell you what, if you go back and have a look at my account, I had my LinkedIn account when I was back in Singapore in 2002. To be honest, I hardly even was on LinkedIn. I was hardly across social media. Even though I've been a branding and a marketing guy all my life, I could keep boasting about the things I have done in the past. In Singapore, people like me used to call themselves jaded. But then I realized, why are we tagging ourselves? Why are we trying to label ourselves? It's just a part of the journey that was there. Like you rightly said, you've taken about 5, 6 months back. And I looked at LinkedIn only in 23 October. I think it was November when I actively started putting out. Because if you will see, what I put out is more of trying to blend spirituality with the practical terms of how the corporate world works. I have almost 17 years of serious corporate culture working across different countries, different positions. And what you rightly said, I really resonate with that. There are a lot of people, because today we have the internet, AI, there's so much that AI can do for us. But at the end of the day, the experience that people like us, you, me, we've worked in the corporate culture, that the AI is not going to be able to give you no matter what.
I find it interesting that someone like you who've had that serious, hardcore, undeniable corporate experience, you've walked the path, stepping in and saying, I know the path, I walked the path. And the path can be stronger if we incorporate the wisdom of the yogis. You also bring in neuroscience and NLP. And that's what I find fascinating because it feels like you're walking these different paths that integrate and become one single path. I admire that you did that. So, my question to you is what made you say, I've had a full career in the corporate world, but now I want to talk about holistic and spiritual wisdom as well as neuroscience to create a better corporate world? What made you decide to do that? And what is end goal?
That's a good question. I'm going to go back all the way to 1990s when I started my career because I was already spiritually inclined.
Mhm.
As I had mentioned to you earlier, about my conversation with Mrs. Moss about life. And given my that period of working, when I started incorporating this into my corporate culture, the company sales increased by 25%. The company's net profits went up by 9%. I had proven to the bosses that we don't need to lie. We don't need to do things which are unethical. There was a point where we had the balance sheet to prove it. And
Mm.
yes, this can be achieved. Even though I had my senior managers who were not very happy with me, at the end of the year, when we presented the balance sheet to the bosses, we were like, hey, this makes sense. Now, coming back to the other question, what made me do this and how it will happen? Actually happened in 2004 when my dad passed away in the war.
Condolences.
No, please. I always tell people life is an illusion, death is a reality. Today or tomorrow, we are all going to go. So that's a reality. In 2004, when this happened, I had 3 companies running in Singapore. And my mother came up to me and said, I am going back to India. No matter.
Mm.
Are you coming with me or you're going to be here? And I had to make a very difficult choice at that point, whether to be with my mother or to look at my career. With our Indian culture and spirituality, just 2 or 3 days back, the spiritual master reassured that taking care of your parents is your prime responsibility. And that's the reason if I don't take care of my parents, I don't have kids. So for me, I don't have to worry about whether my kids are going to take care of me or have that expectation. But as a parent, my mother, who's kept me 9 months in her womb when I was not yet born, and the pain that a mother goes, I think no other human can understand that pain, especially when they are in their golden years. If we as children can't step up and take our responsibilities, what is the point of having this life when you can't even take care of your own blood? Especially during their golden years, they need you the most. They don't want money, they don't expect. All they need is respect, dignity, and you spend time with them. And to be honest, in 2004, when I made that call, it took me a while, a couple of weeks to make that decision. It took me almost 2 years to wind down all my three companies and come back to India. 2007, towards the 2006 end, we finally made that shift. And yes, life has been very different since then. But if I was to turn back and had to do it again, I will still do it without any regrets. Because on the path of spirituality that we are, when we talk about all the neuroscience, there is something you have to understand. On the spiritual path, if you see people who are less educated, in India, we've seen that. We've had this experience. In a lot of countries in the world where the spiritual teachers are there, they'll tell you one thing. When we don't bring in our intellect, it's much easier to connect with yourself. We're not questioning too many things. We just follow. We just take it and we follow. It's a very simple process. The moment we humans start using our intellect, we start complicating things. Life is very simple if we all understand it. It's very simple. It's we humans who've been complicating it all the time. We humans want to conquer everything, but we have forgotten what history teaches us. Look at Alexander the Great. He conquered everything. And when his time came to go, all his riches couldn't save him. It is written clearly in the story. He asked all his army and all his generals to show his arms outside his coffin while they were carrying him. This is a sign to tell us we've come empty-handed, we're going to go empty-handed.
Exactly. That's a very powerful reminder. And my question to you is, how desperate do you think we are to be reminded of these concepts, especially living in a world of gratification, hustle, needing to make money and survive, living this material life where sometimes there's a disconnect?
For years, I've been listening because I was also in one of rat races. I've been there. The greed to achieve more, to be having a pat on my back from my bosses. Good job, you've achieved this. We humans have this need for gratification. But we forget we are here to serve. We humans need constant reminders.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. We need constant reminders, and sometimes the realization becomes deeper when we get reminded of something very basic we forgot. When I think about money, I don't think of it as good or evil. I just think of it as a tool that you give it value. It can be a tool for greed, but it could also be a tool to improve people's lives, to do good. I feel it contradicts the way some people view money. This is just my view. You don't need to agree, but I feel like the energy of money can be very godly if it is used in a way that elevates life
Others,
around us.
Cindy, I will 100% agree with you. Money is not bad. It is we humans who have been doing it. See, you rightly said money is a tool. If you put money in the right hands, a person will use it for good. But if you put it in the wrong hands, he will do it for evil. There are people who will use drugs, do a lot of other things, but that's his doing. But if you in a hand of a right person, he will use that money to elevate others, do good in society, provide food, shelter for people. So yes, 100% I would go with you. Not even 100, I would say 1,000%. Money is not bad. It is we humans who make it bad. My spiritual master, for years, they have been giving us this example. When the previous master was there, he used to mention this. When we are humans, first we desire to have a two-wheel. The moment we achieved that two-wheeler, our greed takes us to having a four-wheeler. Now, once we have reached that level even of achieving that four-wheeler, we drive over, the four-wheeler to transport us and all that. Then it starts with, now I need a bigger or a better brand of a four-wheeler. Once you achieve that, you're looking at getting an airplane, you want to own this. So at the end, if you look at our entire life, we're spending in that thing. I want this, want this. And then what we are doing is we're working towards, we are actually not only working, but it's like slogging ourselves to achieve that. But we also forget there is a very important thing, which is the materialistic things in which you will look for your happiness will become the root cause of your sorrows.
Yes, absolutely. And there's something that I've been really thinking about and wrote about it in my most recent book is having an understanding of the difference between needs and wants. We want many things, and those wants sometimes align with needs, and sometimes they're just a want and not what we really need. I have type 1 diabetes, and it's well managed, thank God. Sometimes I want a cookie, but my body does not need the extra sugar if my sugars are running high. What my body needs is nutritious whole foods. That want might be an expression of my body being hungry and needing to eat. But what it needs is something that's nutritious. Now, there's nothing wrong with the cookie. I can give myself the cookie as a treat. I ate my nutritious food to support my body so that when I show up for myself, for people, I have energy. I'm at my best. I'm being the best Cindy I can be because my body is strong. So, yeah, have a cookie, enjoy the cookie, but I don't really need the cookie. That cookie is a desire, and those desires are not necessarily bad or good. It's how we use those desires, how we follow through. If all I ate was a box of cookies, I'm going to make myself sick.
I'll tell you what, because I am a diabetic, I have a type 2 diabetes, but mine is really bad. I take almost 4 shots a day to
Mm.
get through the day. Between the want and the need of a cookie, in spirituality, they say, there are times even I feel like it. But I love brownies. So it's not that we don't have sugar brownies and all that. It is there with all of it. I do a cheat. I'm like, okay.
I cheat all the time.
But this is something which is very different. It's not like I'm overdoing it. It's right. So when your palate says to you, hey, I need to be different. Something. So when you do that, that's okay. But when you overdo any, that's where the problem arises. There's nothing wrong with wants and needs. Yes, we all need to pull through this life. Life is a serious lesson. We all need to evolve with understanding. Recently, there was a nice documentary on Netflix. I forgot the name of that documentary. I'll send it to you. It is all about, how Amazon use the algorithm for people to buy more. It's not only Amazon, but all the other big brands have been tempting people to buy more. But at the end of the day, do we need that much?
No.
Just a few days back, the spiritual master was saying very clearly, what do we need? Maximum 2 square meals a day, a roof over our head, and a fair amount of decent clothes to wear so that we're presentable to people. But over the years, human greed has increased so much that we want brands. I'm not going to deny this. There was a time when I was in the corporate culture. I wanted all the brands because I wanted to be looking good. But today, if you ask me over the period of last, especially since 2006 onwards, these brands don't value anymore. At the end of the day, what is it? When you're sitting on a chair, when you have that power, people respect you. When you're not on that chair, people don't respect you anymore. So for me, the corporate culture has been, as long as you're up there, everybody wants you. Coming back to the whole thing of this want and need, we humans are the ones who are creating this. My wife also has that habit of ordering everything. Didn't need, but how much at the end of the day do you need?
Exactly. And it's okay to indulge and have those moments of joy because I think so often we negatively judge our materiality, but
Yes.
we are in physical form. We are a spirit within this body. And so there are aspects of being in physical form that are very material. And it's
Yes,
okay to enjoy the material, but not be bound by the material.
that is a very fine line. See, when you're presenting yourself in a society or a community, there is certain way of presenting yourself. You need to be formally dressed. You need to be presentable. No denying that. But as you rightfully said, overdoing it is overkilling. We humans at times go overboard with things. I was also somebody who would like, hey, I need a brand. I remember those days we used to have the Bali shoes. Then you had the clocks. You needed good suits like Hugo Boss. I was one of those Armani guys. I used to love that. I remember my time when I was there, I had almost 12 suits in my wardrobe once upon a time. Today, if you ask me, I have one. I'm happy with it. This is the way I am. It's basically trying to cut down. I need to be presentable. That's what it is. But yes, we humans at times, it's not that I'm pointing out to others because I have been through that thought.
It helps us understand people better when we've been in those shoes because it's easy to judge unless you've walked the path. So,
Yes.
because you've been in the corporate world, you had those roles, you're like, yes, I get it. I understand it. So then you could detach and not judge it and say, I've walked it, I understand it, but this is what I choose now. With that, I'd like to ask you another question. What shifts are you presently seeing in the corporate world or not? Do you see anything changing? Do you see more of an openness to embrace a more holistic approach to business?
I'm going to come with a very brutal answer. Always. Very brutal. To be honest, I'm going to look at with the Indian context at this point in time. And I think it's the same across whether we took it into Europe, Asia Pacific, or any of the countries across the world. First of all, we have to understand spirituality has nothing to do with religion. Religion divides you, spirituality takes you to a higher level. Coming to the holistic aspect of the business, I saw that play early in 90s with the companies that I worked or the companies I had as an entrepreneur. But in today's times, we humans have this tendency of forgetting. We have forgotten that we went through a period of COVID, which was basically a standstill. We survived, we lived because there was a reason for it. But coming back to the corporate culture today, I'm going to be very brutal about this. A lot of leaders still don't understand what it is. I'm going to give you a very simple example. There are these two strategies that are there in the business. One is the red ocean strategy, The other one is the blue ocean strategy. Red ocean tells you go and kill each other. You fight it out like cats and dogs. Blue ocean tells you find niche markets, a place for yourself. But from a spirituality or holistic perspective, there is a very simple thing. You don't need to do any of the two. All you need to do is speak to your customers, speak to your conscious, speak to them. And once you start doing that, you will see the results. I have done it in the past, in the 90s. When I told you I stopped lying to the clients, I stopped lying to the vendors. I took care of them. If we were making money, we knew what we needed. We would give the vendors a fair price. We would give a fair price to our clients. On the books, we had a 25% increase in the sales. We had 9% increase in the net profit. I achieved it by doing all these things. So it can be done, but there needs to be a will.
I agree with you that we need more people to embrace this, but COVID was a wake up call of people yearning for this. Let me tell you why. During COVID, we had the great resignation. People quit their jobs. A lot of people did not know why they quit their jobs other than they were unhappy. They knew something was wrong and they quit. We had never seen anything like this before. There has been a shift. Maybe we haven't named it properly. We don't have the distance to fully appreciate it yet and don't have the actual implementation of strategies that are more human centric yet. But there's a great calling for it because people are asking for wellness programs. People are asking for a lot of things. And I think this is coming from the bottom and not necessarily from the top, but it is shaking things up. It is actually something that I wrote about in my book that I published recently, this idea of being more human centric and the new social contract being written. I did not come up with the idea of a social contract. There's another woman who called for a social contract, a new social contract on Forbes magazine. I had been thinking about that, but she gave it that terminology. I'm borrowing it from her and I can't remember her name at the moment. I do think there is a murmuring, a whisper that's getting louder and louder. I think there is an opening right now in a way that we've never had before. What I want to call it is an awakening of spirit where people want to feel aligned when we're talking about what's my purpose or the mission of the workplace and do I feel aligned to the mission and the purpose of a company. What people are really asking themselves is, does my spirit feel aligned? Because I think it's deeper than purpose or mission. It's who I am as a person aligned to this and do I belong here? Perhaps we don't have the terminology in place and people will give things different names, but I do think there is something awakening within humanity that's causing this shift. We had COVID and now we have AI because so many people feel threatened with AI because a lot of jobs will be replaced. So that's going to either push people into desperation or push people to go within and really understand who they are and what they want from life. And we may see this immediately, or it may not be until 30 years from now. I don't know. I cannot predict the future. But I do think we are living in transitional times. We haven't quite yet figured out what that fully means.
I'll agree with you on that because we're humans. A lot of us are not yet enlightened that much. People, the souls that I have come across, a lot of them were very enlightened. They can see things. But for us, I am still evolving. I'm still learning. I am still very much human. With AI, a lot of jobs are threatened. Recently, I attended one of the sessions on AI and put a post on LinkedIn regarding this, which was very thought provoking because AI has been trained on data sets with human biases. Humans have always been biased.
Yes.
While we were discussing this in a session, it came out that AI cannot generate an image with the left hand. If a person is a left hand, who writes with left hand or plays with left,
Interesting.
AI cannot generate that image because it has been trained on data sets with the right hand. This was also discussed recently in the European AI summit that was there. And the Indian Prime Minister also put it across that AI needs to be, very fair. But how can AI be fair? Because all the data sets that have been given has been biased. There was another example that we were discussing while we were at the session, especially with the American context. I'm not going to name the brand or the company. They went through a huge lawsuit. They were using AI for their hiring process. And it was so biased towards the colored people. It was not hiring those colored people. It was more white oriented people that were getting fired. And there was a lawsuit they went through. And now they had to go back and rework on the data sets so that their hiring process can be fair. When we come to AI, even AI is already biased because of the humans. The humans have been biased for thousands of years.
Yeah.
We all have our own biases. So how can we expect AI not to be biased?
Exactly. You can train AI to do certain things and you have to work with it. And I actually don't personally see AI as negative. Many people are scared of it. It's a tool that is transforming us and it is going to shake up the job market. It's going to obliterate a lot of jobs, but I also think it's going to create new jobs. And
Yes, absolutely.
and I think it isn't anything to fear per se, but we do need to have certain ethics around it. And I think that's fair to expect.
Cindy, I'm going to come to you with this. Given your generation and my generation, I'm going to give you a simple example. I remember when we were young, we had audio tapes to play our music. Prior to that, there were LPs, you had records. When the records transitioned, they transitioned to audio cassettes. And when audio cassettes came in, there were a lot of shakeup in the music business. Since I've been in the music and the entertainment business for a serious number of years. And then came the transition to CDs, LD players, DVDs, and then we transitioned music to MP3, and then we had the iPods. And when everything new came, people were scared. There were a lot of jobs that went out and a lot of new jobs that came in. So I look at it as a tool. And I have been telling a lot of people that I interact with in the physical, we all talk about it. AI is not here to replace humans. It's here to help you or enhance your work process so that if you know how to use it, you can spend more time with your family. You can do things you want to. Because an author or a book, the writing could take you almost 6 months to a year to put a book together. You can do that in a couple of days if you know the right ways to do it. It will do your research for you. It will bring out all the papers and everything, and it will also help you refine your writing. If you know how to use it properly, your possibilities are
Limitless, whether it is the way we grow in consciousness, the way we grow as professionals in the business world, in our relationships, in our finances, everything is limitless. It's the value we give to it. It's a beautiful thing. And it's also a really beautiful thing that we're living in these times that we can be so connected because of technology. You're in India, I'm in the United States, and we are meeting online via Zoom, recording this podcast because you and I connected on LinkedIn. It is truly a wondrous time. And we have the capability to view things with awe and wonder while remembering that we need to have a certain ethical compass with using technology. But technology is not a bad thing. What can be bad is our thought processes. And equally, they could be quite positive and enlightening. Neil, I'm so grateful to you. It's been quite a robust conversation, and we've touched upon so many subjects. I think what's beautiful is that we're in completely different continents, coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, but there's this ability for the human spirit to connect and share. And I think that's where we find a lot of magic, a lot of beauty in life. I'm honored that you were able to join us today. Thank you.
Sending, as you rightfully said, we're in two different corners of the world and we still connected. It is the human spirit, which is very true. As I always say, souls that are meant to cross their paths, each other's path, they will come what may. So the distance or the technology will not stop. When it is meant to happen, it will happen. So I was really honored to be on this podcast with you. I was happy that we could share so many things. And I look forward to continuing our conversation over LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Anil. Anil and I had such an amazing conversation and so much fun chatting that I forgot to ask him for his contact information. You can find all of his contact information in the description below. Be sure to reach out to him if you have any questions on Vedic wisdom, Hindu wisdom, or just to say hello. And once again, thank you for being a part of this podcast and listening to this episode. Until next time.